What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Boogie2988 coming at you live once again through the power of the internet. And I'm turning on the camera here to film this old school style video in which I just talk to you, the watcher, as a person. There might be some edits in this video, but I'm going to try to keep them very light. Because I just want to talk to you about something today. And I'm making this video for a few different reasons. Number one, we got a lot of new faces who've come in due to this Nintendo stuff and my virals recently. Welcome to the party. I hope you really enjoy yourself here. I want you to know that this channel will rarely get political or oriented on drama because sometimes this stuff is really important to me, and today is one of those days. So I want to set the record straight, and I want to say some stuff. And if you're new here, it'll get you caught up on a little bit of the history of yours truly. Secondly, I know there's a lot of you who have felt frustrated and disenfranchised by the fact that I do card unboxings and silly unboxings, and I talk about non-political stuff and goofy stuff, and I talk about gaming almost exclusively these days, and you miss this kind of stuff, the personality-driven stuff, the opinion-driven stuff, and so I wanted to touch base with you guys again today. Maybe you'll click on this video, and maybe you'll understand a little bit more. And thirdly, I want to talk about some people in the industry that are currently under some level of attack, some of which maybe they deserve, some of which they don't, and we'll talk about that as we go. I want to talk a little bit about Jontron as a person who I consider to be a friend. Colin Moriarty, somebody whose content I've really enjoyed. I want to talk a little bit about Phillip De Franco and the issues he's having. I want to talk a little bit about, we'll touch on Pewdiepie's issues. And if you're unfamiliar with these issues, I'll get you caught up as we go. Because people have often said, Boogie, your content is kind of neutral. It's kind of wishy-washy. And I want you to know that's by design. I love this goofy stuff. I love opening stupid card packs, and I love playing with stupid toys, and I love just talking about Pokemon and talking about games. This channel for me is kind of like therapy. It's a release. And when I walk into the studio, it's all about video games and fun and toys. And when I go back out through that door, then that's when I deal with the real world, and I deal with the politics, and I deal with the bullshit, I deal with paying my bills. But in here, it's this little sanctum in which you and I just get to have fun, and I love having fun. But that's not the only reason I do that. And we'll talk about that. So let's start by talking about what happened to Felix, because I think everybody knows what happened to PewDiePie. PewDiePie made some very tasteless jokes that I did not personally find all that funny. And because of that, the Wall Street Journal attacked him, saying, look at this guy, he's anti-Semitic, his jokes are anti-Semitic, let's destroy his career, let's take him down, let's make him a household enemy. And of course it didn't stick. YouTubers, we know better. We stuck up for Felix. We knew that we would. We knew that what he was doing was tasteless, but within the realms of reason, and certainly he wasn't the person that they were trying to identify him as with this identity politics, It didn't fit their narrative because it's not real, and we YouTubers are going to stick up for him when it comes to stuff like that. It gets a little more complicated when you talk about some of the other people here. Colin Moriarty, who is a great content producer, has recently come under fire because he made a very tasteless joke on Twitter during International Women's Day. A part of an International Women's Day, there was a small protest that some women chose to participate in which they said, a day without a woman, don't show up for work unannounced, and don't buy anything, and I don't know, I guess maybe don't even help your family, or I don't know, whatever degree you wanted to take it to. I don't know what the original intent was, but don't spend money, and don't help, businesses, and let the world see what it would be like without a woman. And I don't know, I don't think that's a particularly good protest. It's not a particularly great idea, especially if you're showing up to work unannounced. That's my opinion, but whatever. If you wanted to participate in that, I'm all for protest of all types as long as it's nonviolent. You do you, girl. That said, Colin made a tweet in which he said, hashtag day without a woman, finally some peace and quiet. Which is, that kind of old school humor that I grew up with, kind of tongue-in-cheek is what they used to call it, kind of sarcastic, you don't really mean it, it's just a funny concept, not particularly funny, and certainly not the kind of joke you can tell these days without really upsetting a fair amount of people, and that caused this kind of like crumbling over at his network, Kind of Funny Games, and if you're unfamiliar with that, it's four very talented people and a small team underneath us, four faces, and they broke off from the IGN network They broke off from the establishment in the gaming industry and went on to strike out on their own and crowdsourcing it, earning a good chunk of change, which allowed them to earn a good living doing what they love without having to bend to the will of these giant publications. So it's no wonder to me, and shouldn't be to you, that these publications are now lambasting Colin, and they're now lambasting Kind of Funny Games, pointing out that no women work in the organization as a face for the thing, and you know, they're for the loudest men in the industry. And you have people like Destructoid saying, well, Colin Moriarty, his next job will probably be at Breitbart because he's a hateful hate monger, a piece of garbage. And it's no surprise to me that the industry would turn so quickly, because they would hate those people for being independent and for doing what they do. It's no surprise to me that they'll turn on Felix, because they hate Felix for being independent and doing what he does. Jontron's a more difficult situation. You know, I consider John a friend. We have talked on Skype for many, many hours. We have helped each other out when it comes to just stuff. Talked about YouTube, talked about life, and it's been wonderful. And for the most part, I never knew that John had the opinions that he has. I think recently he might have been red-pilled, as they'll say, and he's starting to say that stuff. And maybe he feels that way right now. Maybe he's learning. Maybe he's trying on new ideas and new hats to figure out how he feels. And I don't think that's going to change my opinion with John. John has recently come out and said some stuff about immigration and people of color and things that he feels might be true, and discussed this stuff. And it's left a lot of people very, very angry at John, including ex-friends and ex-fans. And I don't agree with most of what John has to say. But I certainly don't fault him for trying on the idea. And I certainly don't fault him for trying to figure it out for himself and to think for himself instead of swallow and follow a narrative. But once again, John is a YouTube creator and John is independent. So it's no surprise that people turn quickly on him, especially because some of John's stuff was pretty out there, I think. Stuff I would not personally agree with. But the point that I'm making here is these people who I consider peers, these people who I consider to be relatively good content creators, are feeling the teeth now, that are fully chewing them up and spitting them out. They're the same teeth that nipped at me 2.5 years ago. And those are the same people who are so outraged now and vindictive with their outrage and feel that destroying these people's lives and their careers is righteous and correct. And they think they're the good guy, even though they're doing very bad things to people. These are the same people that came at me 2.5 years ago that made me take a step back and say, you know what? I don't want to die on this hill. This is not something I want to end my career over. I have a mortgage to pay. I'm not going to get other job offers like Colin. I'm not going to be able to always be independent like John. You know, I won't be a multimillionaire like Felix and be okay and run my own corporation. I'm just some fat shit in a corner of Arkansas trying to pay his rent, now paying his mortgage, trying to pay his medical bills and stay alive. Maybe there is a better way for me. Maybe I will just play with my Pokemon cards. Maybe I'll let those people be outraged at whoever else they want to be outraged with. And while I do that, I can always try to preach a sense of moderation, a sense of free thinking, a sense of figuring things out for yourself, of being speculative and being suspicious of the things you hear and the things that you see, and to try to encourage people to stop being so far left and so far right and try to find the place in the middle. Because, make no mistake, there are people that would love to destroy any of us. There are people out there who are addicted to outrage, who are addicted to this anger, who are addicted to this power to destroy people, and they'll use it every chance they get. And chances are people who've watched this video up to this point, or even really cut it off 2 minutes in, are using this video as an excuse to try to do that to me here. Oh, he's defending John. He's defending an anti-Semite. He's defending a sexist asshole. And I am. Because whereas I don't agree with their opinions, I believe they have every right to those opinions. I believe that they have every right to think for themselves and to try to feel it out. And the problem with the freedom of thought is sometimes people are going to think things you don't like. People are going to have opinions and ideas that you don't enjoy. And you have to treat that with a certain level of tolerance and understanding. Because if you approach it with tolerance and understanding, you might very well be able to convince that person of otherwise. I do plan to have a conversation with John in the future if you'll allow me to, and maybe we'll talk about some of this stuff, and maybe I'll learn from him and he'll learn from me, and we'll land somewhere in the middle. And wouldn't that be swell? Because the middle is a great place to be. And people say, Boogie, you won't stand up for what you believe in. You won't stand up for what you care about. Well, you know what? Damn it. I stand on this hill. And I'll die on this hill. This is the one I will stand up for. Not that I stand up very often. But this is the one that I will fight for. I believe that there's no such thing as wrong think. I think there is no such thing as a wrong opinion. I think I think that it's okay to have whatever shitty opinion you have. And it's the best way to treat somebody with a shitty opinion, one that might be morally, objectively wrong, is to try to talk to them, to treat them like a person, to treat them like you care about them, to treat them moderately and maybe with respect, and talk to them and try to convince them. Because I'll tell you something, the studies show when you fight somebody's ideas, especially their beliefs, it only strengthens their beliefs and convictions. You can't change somebody's mind with hate. You can only change somebody's mind with love. And I'll stand on that hill and I'll fight for it. And you know what else? Something else I stand for. I think you should be able to make jokes about even the worst shit in life. Sexism, racism, sure. I may not choose to make those jokes myself. But I think if you are the person who wants to make those jokes, you sure as shit could. Because I think making jokes about the darkest, sickest, worst parts of life is the only good thing that can come out of those things. The only good thing that can come out of Alzheimer's disease is that terrible joke I tell about my grandmother with Alzheimer's disease. The only thing that can come out of cancer, good thing that can come out of cancer, is mocking it, to make fun of it. I think sometimes that is not only a tool for coping, but I think sometimes it is a tool to create and make the world better. Sometimes with a tongue-in-cheek attitude, with a sarcastic attitude, you can draw attention to a very bad ideal and make people consider that ideal without accepting it and change their minds on it with comedy. I've learned as much from stand-up comedians as I've learned from philosophers in my lifetime, probably more. And God bless them for choosing the tough topics, and God bless them for choosing the difficult stuff. And maybe Colin's no stand-up comedian, but I found his joke to be thought-provoking at the very least, and I welcome that. And that's a hill I'll die on. So here's the thing. I'm going to continue to show off t-shirts and Nintendo Switches and Amiibos, and I'm going to talk about goofy video games and what I like about frame rates and what I like about that kind of stuff because, number one, I choose to do it. I love to do it. I want to do it. It's exciting for me. It makes me feel very good. But secondly, because there's some very nasty people out there on the left and the right. Make no mistake. There's some very nasty people out there who will destroy you as they're destroying some of my peers right now. And I'm going to take a few bites for this topic. The rest of the stuff, I'll leave it up to you guys. I'd rather play Nintendo. Guys, thanks for watching. I love you very much. Now let's see if I actually have the balls to upload this video. I'll speak with you again soon.